Good morning, guys, or good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. It's Sunday morning right now as I'm recording this, Sunday, July 29. It's about 6:28 a.m. I've been up for a while, as most of you know, just waiting on this daggone sun to come up. So I come up here and do my ramble. But today is the first Sunday in 6 months that I've not worked. And it feels good. I resigned from the post office. I think this is my third day now of being happily unemployed from the U.S. Postal Service as a city carrier's assistant in Charlottesville, Virginia. This, and you're probably thinking, what? The mailman doesn't work on Sunday. Yes, Virginia, the mailman does work on Sunday. The city carrier assistants and the rural carrier assistants, and a position that's called an ARC. These are folks who will go in on Sundays and holidays to deliver the Amazon packages for people who buy on Amazon Prime and choose Sunday delivery as an delivery option. We're not supposed to deliver mail on Sunday, though I did deliver mail on Sunday twice. And there was one Sunday where like 6 carriers were forced to deliver mail on Sunday. I didn't do it that Sunday. So I guess mail is regularly delivered on Sundays in Charlottesville. These folks that time, they filed a union grievance. I didn't, and I'm going to tell you why I never filed a grievance when I delivered mail twice on Sundays. I'll just tell you right now. I mean, when I got home from the war in Iraq in 2009, got out of the hospital in 2010, we were at the height of the Great Recession. You remember, those of you old enough, and this wasn't too long ago, the economy was the worst it had been since the Great Depression. That's why they called it the Great Recession. And I couldn't find a job. And so when I had to deliver mail on Sundays twice, once was because, I could really empathize. And today's conversation is going to be about sympathizing, empathizing. Are we really being sympathetic for somebody, or are we being superior to somebody through our words and disguising them as being sympathetic? And you're going to understand what I'm talking about here in a minute. But I could really empathize for the Charlottesville post office the one particular Sunday, Mother's Day it was, when I was delivering mail, because they're understaffed, the people are overworked, and the people of Charlottesville and Albemarle County deserve to have their mail. And so I was out there delivering mail for several hours and then delivering Amazon parcels for several hours. That was about a 13-hour day. It needed to be done. And also I was thankful that now, 10 years after the Great Recession, almost 10 years, I was in a position to have a job where there was so much work to be done that it needed to be done on Sunday. And it was with an entity, the post office, that actually doesn't do this on Sundays. We don't deliver, I'm not we anymore. They don't deliver mail on Sundays and federal holidays. So I viewed it as a good thing to have a job. I was grateful to have that job. While I had it, I needed it. I needed the income until we turned things around in other areas. And I was always grateful. And I want to make sure I've got that point across. Just because I didn't like how I was treated there and I didn't agree with the way the thing was run. I mentioned before, it's like the epitome of the dystopia in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. That's the post office. You're going to hear more about that here in just a second for more proof and evidence of that. But I was always thankful. So when I was delivering mail on Sunday, that particular Sunday, I was thankful to have the opportunity to have that work. Now, there was another Sunday when I was doing it just to be punished or hazed or retaliated against for having gone over the head of the person in charge in Charlottesville for reasons we've discussed. But but again, I didn't grieve it because I thought about it and I told myself, Kevin, remember 10 years ago, you would have begged for this opportunity. And so now I had it. And so I was happy to have it, though I wasn't happy for the reason I was out there. But today's Sunday. If you're watching this video today, you might see mail trucks out there driving around in your neighborhood. They're delivering Amazon packages. Most of you know this by now. And these are the hardest working men and women there are. Aside from, in the military, as far as over here in the civilian sector, being a mail carrier, and even though it was only 6 months, that was the hardest job I ever had. I'm telling you, my hat is off to these men and women who do this. Many of them do it for 20, 30 plus years. And guys, these people put in 12-hour days. And other people do it too, you know, with other jobs and other professions, and other people work on Sundays. There's a lot of people out there worthy of a lot of credit, but just having walked 6 months in the shoes of the mail carriers, I have a lot of respect for these people, and I hope you do too. Not everybody does, and I'm going to share a couple of examples today of that, that I experienced, my own experience. But so you might see mail trucks, but let me tell you, you might also see these big, large Ryder moving vans. You might see U-Haul moving vans, and you're like, well, is my neighbor moving? And you see somebody pop out and drop a package at a doorstep or something. That's a mail carrier, at least in Albemarle County in Charlottesville. And, you know, it's not that we had a shortage of mail trucks, and they're called LLVs, the little white trucks that say U.S. Postal Service on them. We had what seemed to be a surplus, but we couldn't use them. And this is crazy, and this goes back to the whole Atlas Shrugged dystopia that Ayn Rand warned us of, and this was half a century ago, of what happens when people in charge of running an organization just doesn't care anymore. But I don't know the exact number. I would estimate probably 8. There are probably 8, perhaps more, mail trucks at the post office in Charlottesville that I'm told run perfectly well, but for which the post office doesn't have keys. And then there are an approximately the same amount of keys for trucks inside the post office, for which the Charlottesville post office doesn't have the trucks that match the keys. So, you know, a lot of folks in Charlottesville were always asking, why don't I get my mail for 3 or 4 days at a time? And I talked in other videos about the severe understaffing. They need 20 or 25 more carriers on any given day. Well, one of the reasons mail doesn't always get delivered in a timely manner is because, and this is an actual experience, this isn't an opinion, this is something I experienced. You know, one day I go in, I get my route ready. There's no trucks. There's simply no trucks. All the other carriers are gone. I was being brought in later by this time. So I'm ready to go. I'm ready to deliver mail and packages. One day it took an hour and a half for the supervisors to find a vehicle for me to take my route out in. And they're arguing over trucks. Why don't we have trucks? And I asked one of my supervisors once, this seems like this would be the easiest problem to solve, and this should be the problem to solve first. Contact the office in Richmond, who kind of oversees the office in Charlottesville, and say, hey, look, we've got 8 trucks we don't have keys for. We've got 8 sets of keys for which we don't have trucks. Fix this. We have a truck shortage. But that never happened, at least in the 6 months I was there. And this particular supervisor said, yeah, I brought that up. That would be the first thing I would do. She came in from somewhere else, and she said when she brought this up, she was looked at like she had a third eye. Like, that just sounds crazy. That's crazy talk to try to fix a problem like that. So in Charlottesville, they lease Ryder trucks. They lease U-Hauls. And so that's why sometimes you'll see your mail carrier out there in a Ryder truck or a U-Haul, or on Sundays delivering packages for the post office out of a Ryder truck. I mean, that's the answer to why they're using, people would ask this all the time. So, you know, and one time, how did that end? Took an hour and a half. I've, on several occasions, delivered mail out of a Ford Explorer. The post office in Charlottesville has a Ford Explorer they use for express deliveries. There's a lady, a clerk, who, you know, something comes in, it needs to be delivered by 3. She'll run it out in the Ford Explorer. It's kind of like, you know, the post office version of a speedboat. She's one delivery, one stop, get out there, deliver it, come back. There were times I'd have to take the Ford Explorer, and how do you fit a whole mail route in there? You don't. You put part of it in, you get whatever you can fit, you go out, you deliver it, and then you come back for the rest later, hoping that maybe another carrier's done with their truck, because you can't use the 8 or 10 that are out in the parking lot that don't have keys. So, and then the whole time, of course, you're being screamed at by your PM supervisor about, what's taking you so long? You need to be back by this time. What's taking you so long? So anyway, and then on Sundays, you're doing it just for Amazon delivery. So when I first started delivering on Sundays, I spent my first Sunday with a former coworker I'd mentioned before. Her name was Danielle, wonderful person, Iraq veteran, and I really enjoyed working with Danielle. So, but then I got out there on my own. I'm delivering packages, and the people in Charlottesville, I've said it before, are wonderful. Love them. there were times I would deliver on a Sunday, and people didn't realize we delivered on Sunday, and they're like, "What are you doing delivering on Sunday?" And I told them, it's for Amazon Prime. And a lot of times they would say, "Oh, I feel so bad for you delivering on Sunday," and they meant it. They really meant it. They were being empathetic. Some of them, most of them, a lot of them were being sympathetic, and in both cases, it was okay, and I appreciated that, and I told them, don't feel bad for me. I mean, are you going to go to the grocery store today? I don't know. Well, if you do, you're going to have people at the grocery store working on Sundays. And I'm going to give a shout out here, even though Kathy Abell said it's not necessary to give all these shout outs. She understands there's a lot of people here, and I understand too, Kathy, it's not necessary, but I like to do it. Oh, and by the way, Kathy, there's your shout out. But the other shout out is to Stacy Holly, who is a subscriber who comments on a lot of our videos. Stacy works in a hospital, 16-hour shifts, and I'm sure Stacy works on a lot of Sundays. So it's not just the mail carriers, and I would point this out to these people who are being sympathetic and empathetic, and I'd let them know I did appreciate their concerns. But every now and then you'd have that one who they weren't being sympathetic or empathetic. And what's the difference? Sympathetic is when you feel pity or sorrow for someone and their plight. Empathetic, it's closer than that. It's more real. It's when you actually, whether you've been in that person's shoes or not, you, in your mind, put yourself in that person's position. So you're more emotionally attached. There's nothing wrong with sympathy. I always never felt like I wanted it. But people who are being empathetic truly are, their head and their hearts are in the right place. But you'd get that one guy or that one woman out there who would tell you how sorry they felt for you, and it was because they wanted to feel superior. These are the narcissists, a little less than 1% of the general population. And they would tell you how sorry they felt for you working on a Sunday, and it was to degrade or to make you feel bad. It didn't work on me. I know who I am, and so I didn't care. But I went back after this happened a few times on Sundays. And one Sunday I was talking to Danielle, and I mean, I'm not trying to embarrass her, but up on site, you would think Danielle's is sweet, and she is sweet. She's an attractive lady, and she smiles. She's always happy, but she's a combat veteran. She was an NCO in the Army. She was a soldier. If you think for a minute that she won't break you in half if you get out of line, you're wrong, because she would. And she never sugarcoated anything. So I go up to her one day, and she just made regular carrier. Congratulations, Danielle. She is no longer a city carrier's assistant. She is now a full-time carrier, and I'm happy for her. And but I said, Danielle, I think that some of these people that are telling me they feel sorry for me really aren't. I think they're trying to make me feel bad. And she's like, Lake, it's taking you this long to figure that out? Really? Not really. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I always look for the best in people. But I knew what was up. And she said, you can tell them when they're checking out on Amazon, when they're ordering on Thursday night, not to check Sunday delivery if they really feel sorry for you. And then if they say, well, I want my package on Sunday, and we'll say, well, then you obviously don't feel too sorry for me now, do you? That was good advice Danielle gave. But I don't, that's not my way. So I figured, well, I'll just ignore them, walk off, don't say anything. And then I thought, what I should say is I take tips, because technically we could. I think the rule was you're not allowed to take more than $20 per year per person or something, but you can take tips. I never got a tip. I never asked for a tip, and I never said it. But I thought, if someone says that to me again, and I can tell they're genuinely doing this out of coming from the place of feeling superior rather than actually feeling sympathetic or empathetic, I'm going to tell them, yeah, well, you feel sorry for me? I take tips. See how sorry for me they felt then. But I thought, no, let's not do that either. So I'm out in this neighborhood, and I'm delivering packages, and there's this guy. He's mowing his grass. His grass was well manicured. The only thing more well manicured than this guy's grass was this guy's hair, and it's early Sunday morning, and I deliver a package to his neighbor, not him. And I smile as I'm going up the drive of his neighbor's, smile and wave, and he smiles. Well, he goes out of his way to stop his mower and come over and meet me at the truck. And I thought, well, maybe he's waiting on a package. He didn't have a package coming, and he knew it. So I get back to the truck, and he says, wow, working on a Sunday, huh? I said, yep, working on a Sunday. He said, well, I hope you're getting overtime. I said, well, no. He goes, what? He goes, "You're not getting like double time to work on a Sunday?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "If I go over 8 hours for the day, I'll get time and a half. And if I go over 10 hours for the day, I will get overtime, or, double time, because that's how it worked." And that happened a lot of days. I put in a lot of 12 hours on Sundays, especially. Um, so he's like, "Wow, that's terrible, man." He goes, "I get to be here with my family all day. I get to mow my grass." And he's pointing out his yard, and it's a beautiful yard. He was not being sympathetic. He was not being empathetic. He was being superior. And, I could have fought fire with fire. I could have looked at his yard and said, "Yeah, wow, that's nice. It's big enough for your house. Oh, look, your neighbor's house is like 10 feet away. You guys can have a conversation out your windows. You should see my yard. It's 6 acres." But would that have made me any better? No. And it wouldn't have. So I didn't say it. And I thought, well, maybe I should tell this guy I take tips. If you feel so sorry for me, I take tips. No. The thing to do was say nothing, get in the truck and leave. But I bit on his bait. And you know what I told the guy? I said, "You know what, sir?" I said, "I'm very thankful to be working on a Sunday. I'm grateful to have work to do on a Sunday." And he looked at me and he was confused. And I basically shared with him in small detail what I just shared with you at the opening of this video. I said, "Sir," and this guy was younger than me. He's probably in his mid to late 30s, but still, out of respect, I was calling him sir. And I said, I was in Iraq. When I got home, there were no jobs. I really struggled. There were financial responsibilities I couldn't meet. And I never felt worse at any time in my life than when I could not meet these responsibilities. And I'm not going to go into detail with this. Detail is not necessary. And we all have our own stories. We all have our own experiences. So if I go into explicit detail, you might not be able to relate with me as well as you can if I don't go into explicit detail. And I want to be able to relate to you, and I want you to be able to relate to me. But the point is, I had some very important financial responsibilities I could not meet because of the financial difficulties of not being able to find full-time, long-term, gainful employment after the war. So I told this guy, "I now have a job where there's so much work to do, I get to work on Sunday." I said, "Sir, I don't have to work on Sunday. I get to work on Sunday." There's a difference. And you could tell this threw the guy off. And he was looking, and he was picking up what I was laying down. And I think he felt humbled for a minute. But then he caught himself. He said, "Well, my kids, who are really just teenagers, they're swimming in offers." And guys, I was out of the U.S. so long that I kind of forgot a lot of the ways in which we mince our words. I know I'm an avid reader, but I don't read books written by people who like to show off their knowledge of the flexibility of the English language and all the many ways in which you can use it with big words that most people don't understand and all. So I looked at him. I'm like, "Swimming." He goes, "They're getting a lot of job offers." Oh, yeah. That's a common, cause I mean, it'd been 8 years since I'd heard that expression. Swimming in anything means there's so much of it. There's a lot of it. And so then, of course, I think this guy took this as, "Wow, this guy's really stupid. He doesn't even know what I'm talking about here. He barely speaks English." Well, no, it's because Kesabot ko chaka historia visayan dako chakoalam Tagalog kunti lang. And I did this for many years. And what I'm saying is I spoke mostly Visayan. I speak and understand a lot of it and a little bit of Tagalog. And this is how I talked for many years. It wasn't English. I think sometimes reading 10 books a month saved my knowledge of my native language. So anyway, it occurred to me at this time, he's, telling me how his teenagers are superior to me too. It's not just him. And so I said, "Okay, sir." I said, "Yes, the economy today is much better than it used to be, and I'm very thankful, and I'm happy to hear that your children are swimming in job offers. That's wonderful." I got in the truck and I left. And guys, let me tell you something, and I shared this in another video. The universe has this amazing way of teaching us lessons, and I know I was a mail carrier for 6 months because I'd forgotten a very important lesson in my life, and it was a lesson about humility. And now I want to point this out before I go further, because we get a lot of comments. Again, my wife and I laugh, we ignore them. We're looking for the comments from people like Kathy Abell and comments from Stacy Holly and other people we've mentioned. Comment from username MJC427. That's not her or his real name, as we know, but they left a comment about how they were glad I'd left the post office. Their sister was a rural carrier for 30 some years, I think. She'd become bitter. She dealt with being bitten by dogs, dealing with jerks. And that's kind of what got me thinking about this guy this morning, that and not working on Sunday for the first time in 6 months. Because I could see where dealing with this too much for too long, where it could kill your soul. But anyway, my point, I can only control what I say. I cannot control how you take what I say. I'm not going to censor what I say due to any sensitivity you might have or any issues you might have. That's yours. You own that. I never say anything out of malicious intent. I say things because these are my experiences and this was what I want to say, and I feel that saying the things the way I say them might help someone. So now, with that said, there's nothing wrong with being a mail carrier. My respect, I have a friend, Gary, who did it for more than 30 years, and his wife, Lori, did it for 7. And I have so much more respect for both of them now, having done it for only 6 months and realizing how difficult of a job it was, how hard of a job it was. I look at mail carriers through different eyes now than I did before I did it. And I would never, ever say anything disrespectful to a mail carrier because I know what they go through. I did it. And guys, if it's a hot day, meet them at the door with water. Meet them at your box with water. If they stick your mail into a rural box, they're not going to turn you away. Now, with this said, I'm going to tell you, I honestly feel that I was in a position where I had done really well as a writer. I'd achieved some success and I was making good money. It went to my head. I let it go to my head. I started thinking that maybe I was a little more than what I was, and the universe came along and said, "Pop." It's like the game Whack-A-Mole. No, you coming up, bam. You need to. And I'm not saying I was pushed back down the ladder of socioeconomics because I was a mailman. That's not what I'm saying. The universe said, "You didn't learn your lesson. Pop, back in the classroom." And my classroom was working for the United States Postal Service for 6 months. So it was a lesson in humility. And I hope the lesson took this time, and I hope the lesson sticks because I don't want to repeat the class. And none of us, I believe, are immune to having to go back and repeat the class if a lesson doesn't stick. So, ironically, about 2 weeks later, I was in this exact same neighborhood, and right across the street from this guy's house, there were a bunch of little kids, sweet little kids, 5, 6 years old. They had a lemonade stand, and I saw it. And I didn't have a delivery in that part of the neighborhood that day, but I stopped. I got out. I wanted to buy lemonade off of these kids because I wanted to reward their efforts. I saw somebody out here, young people at that, doing something, and they were raising money for the SPCA, which I thought was really sweet. They were stepping outside of themselves and doing something for somebody or another entity other than themselves when they didn't really have to. I would like to commend their parents. I don't know if their parents are watching or not, but their parents are really doing a great job teaching these kids about empathy, about sympathy, not about superiority. So anyway, I get out, and again, a lot of times your mail carrier won't even be wearing a uniform of the U.S. Postal Service. I never had one. I wasn't really there long enough to get one, even though you're supposed to get one after 90 days. But come on, if this place can't get trucks and keys that match trucks, do you really think they're going to get uniforms? Danielle just got her uniform, and she'd been there more than a year. But I got out, and I'm telling these kids how proud of them I am. Wow, you're out here doing this on a Sunday. You're working, and you're doing it for a good cause on a Sunday. And this little girl looks at me. She goes, "Lots of people work on Sundays," and she's right. I mean, Stacy Holly is a nurse, and she said she works in a hospital. I'm assuming she's a nurse. You know what happens when we assume. She might not be a nurse. So Stacy, I don't want to assume anything, but the cashiers at the grocery stores work on Sundays. The Walmart, Lowe's, lots of people work on Sundays. And this little girl says, "Everyone works on Sunday." I said, "Everyone?" She goes, "Well, except the mailman." And I said, "You might not believe this or not, but I'm actually the mailman." And I told her, yeah, that's why I said earlier, yes, Virginia, even the mailman works on Sundays. So I guess that's it for the day. My whole point of this is we need to check our motives when are we being sympathetic? Are we being empathetic? Or are we being superior? Because, You know, and I said this in another video, another CCA I worked with just for a short time because he was kind of newer, a guy named John, hardworking guy. He was good, positive attitude, always smiling. You know, he always had a fist bump and a hug for you every time you saw him. And he's one of the people I'll miss. But when I was leaving, and John, you know, found out there towards the end that I've written some books and I'm going back into this stuff. And he said, remember the little people. And I said, John, there's no such thing as little people. And he said, man, that's deep. He says, I appreciate that. That's deep. And then I told him, and it's kind of the moral of the story today, John, 6 months ago, I think I myself had forgotten that. So don't credit me, you know, where it's not really due for saying this now. I said, I had to kind of relearn. And I said, I guess, John, if you think for a minute that there are little people, you're right. You're it. You're the little person. And the universe has a way of coming around and reminding you, no, there are no little people. So, you know, one time I parked in front of a driveway on a Sunday to deliver a package, and there's a car behind me just laying on the horn, honk, 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 honk. And I'm like, what's going on here? I pulled over to the side of the road, but I had this big Ryder truck. So I get out and I have a little package, and I get out and I'm walking back, and there's this woman just blazing on the horn. And people like this are the minority. 999,999 people out of 100,000 people in Charlottesville and Albemarle were wonderful and never acted like this. But this woman's laying on the horn, honk, honk, honk. And I'm walking up to her car, and she goes, you can't just hang out in front of my driveway. And I've been there 5 seconds. I said, oh, is this your driveway? She goes, yes, and you can't just hang out in front of my driveway. If you got to text or do, you go somewhere else. And I held up this package. I said, are you? And I read the name, and she's like, it occurred to her who I was and why I was there. She said, yeah. I said, here, I'm just working, man. I said, delivering packages on Sunday. Here's your package. Have a good day. And I go back to the truck, and she's out. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, my gosh, I didn't realize who you... No, she wasn't. She was embarrassed because she acted like that, and she got caught. And here I was. I don't think she was empathetic or sympathetic that I was working on a Sunday. The only thing she seemed to be concerned with is that for 5 seconds I was blocking her driveway. Folks, don't be like that. You see these men and women out there working on Sundays or any day of the week, and they're working hard, and it's hot, and they're out, you know, take a minute. If you want to say something mean, you want to take something, just take a second and then say nothing. So that's it for the day. I've got a lot. I'm going to try to do some things today. Day 3, and again, I've been doing a whole lot of nothing, which has been a very much important and long overdue something. Hanging out with my family is what I've been doing, and that's what this is all about. So they're going to be awake soon. Time to go down there and make my wife's coffee and snuggle with my son for a very long time today. So here's your parting shot of the homestead. Thanks for being with us. Thank you to everybody who's been subscribing, and we'll see you next time.